You're watching The Edward Fowler Show. Now, here's your host, Edward Fowler.
And a very good evening to everyone watching on YouTube.com here this evening on this lovely Monday night, I believe it is. Monday, June the 16th, 2025. And of course, 10 years ago today was the big announcement. 10 years ago today, Aaron Rose. You know what that big announcement was?
Sorry?
Do you remember what the big announcement was 10 years ago today? On June the 16th, 2015, as it was back then?
Oh gosh, please, please refresh my memory. It's been a while.
Yes, well, that was the day when we went live to Trump Tower in New York City, and we saw Donald Trump coming down the staircase, and the rumors were true that he was going to win to be the president of the United States of America, which
Wow.
he then went on to win against Hillary Clinton back then, and again he lost and then won again Kamala Harris. So
Right.
it's crazy that it's only been 10 years since that iconic moment happened. And
It's hard to believe. I mean, time really does fly.
It does indeed, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show tonight, because Aaron Rose is a professional ring announcer, MC, whatever else you want to call him, a commentator as well, and whatever else he may do. Thank you so much for eventually coming on the show, because I know we did schedule this back in, I believe, January, February time. But
Right.
then about the day before I was going to post that you're going to be coming on the show, you lost your voice.
Right. Lost my voice. It was actually gone for a
Apparently.
week. Yeah, it was gone for a week. Just I had strained my vocal cords from a show, and it just did not want to cooperate for a little bit. So, after a bunch of hot tea and honey and just trying to rest my voice, I was able to get it back, and and then life hit, and then here we are, 6 months later.
Yeah, 6 months
So-
later. I've been waiting for you to reach out to me to reschedule, but you never did, so I thought I better do it. And here we are, 6 months or so later, to get you back on the show. So did you learn your lesson from that mistake you made back in January of how to avoid losing your voice going forward?
Yeah. Well, what was going on? I had a bunch of shows the weekend before, and I was doing both commentary and ring announcing on both of those. So it was already double trouble. So from here on out, I always keep a nice supply of cough drops with me, just to make sure I can keep my voice taken care of, and of course, lots and lots of water. Also learned that it's better to have room temperature water than cold water, because cold water shrinks your vocal cords.
Interesting.
Mhm.
I never knew that.
Yep.
So
So that was an eye opener for me.
yeah, no, absolutely, it will be. It will be for sure. And it's I'm glad that you've done your research now and got back into correcting yourself and getting yourself in the right frame of mind to make sure
Right.
that doesn't happen again to you. And have you decided to do more double trouble, doing double ring announcing as commentary, or are you just going to fix to one now, or?
I still do both. There are some promotions where we have ways that we have set that up, and it just works. It's a good flow. My commentary partner, does a great job. His name's Bobby Blade. He does a wonderful job of letting the fans know what's going to be happening in that match, like who's the background and the wrestlers coming in and talking about all the stories and stuff. So he is excellent and awesome to fill time while I get back to the commentary table from the ring. So we have a great system there. That's at Elite Wrestling Alliance, based out of Danville, Kentucky.
Yeah. You do get around into many different promotions. You
Yes.
are one of the busiest people in the business. You are also very critical of certain wrestlers as well. Like, for instance, we've had on this show Congo Kong, and you've been very critical of his work in both XCF and EWA. over the past number of years. Why are you always critical of Congo Kong?
No,
Because
I'm not critical. I'm not critical.
okay,
He he does like to take the referees out. That does bother me a little bit, but no, Congo Kong. To me, he's one of the best big men wrestlers out there. Um, I honestly, if you want my honest opinion,
yes,
I
I
don't
do.
think he hasn't gotten his flowers. He really hasn't. Um, I'm not trying to be critical of Congo Kong. If somebody said that, that wasn't me. Uh,
Well, I got
but
proof. I got some. I got my own opinion about you and Congo Kong, but I'll get into that in a moment. But please.
um, he hasn't gotten his flowers, honestly. He's one of the best big men wrestlers. I really think he could have. Um, he can make an impact anywhere he goes. He's made an impact anywhere he goes. Um, he's a man you want to stay out of the way of, for sure, because he is a monster in that ring. But if you watch him perform, golly, just one of the best big guys that's out on the scene right now, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely is, and I'll come to my thoughts now about Congo Kong. So the reason why I think that you're as critical of him, as you mentioned at the beginning of that statement you made, is that you don't like the way he comes across in the text. For
The referees, yeah.
well, what do you make of Congo Kong? What do you think why he does that, and why does that go in your nose for? Because you're not, you're not worried. You're just calling the action. You're never going to get in Congo Kong race, so it shouldn't really bother you, really, should it? Or
Well, I mean, I fear for their safety. That's all. I fear for the referee safety. I mean, you're looking at almost a 7 foot guy attacking 150 pound referee. 130 pound referee. It's not wonderful. But here's the thing: the referees also need to know you don't get in his way either, because it's Congo Kong. He's going to take care of business.
certainly is, certainly is. But I mean, there's been one or two referees in particular who you like to name drop on commentary when they do get on Congo Kong's bad side, and I believe that they deserve to get the curse of Congo Kong because obviously they're not doing their jobs correctly compared to other referees who you do not name drop when they're in a match with Congo Kong. So maybe Congo Kong hear you from a mile away name dropping these officials and think, well, why is he getting more airtime than I am? And the star here, not these other guys.
I don't. I know
But
these officials, and I know them well. So
well, for instance, let's go and let's name drop one who's been on this show before, Peyton Bowman.
I
He's
love Peyton. Yes.
yeah. Well, I think every time whenever Congo Kong gets on Peyton's bad side, you always
Oh,
seem like burst out laughing on commentary.
the I wasn't doing commentary at that point for that match, but the very first time that I saw him attack Peyton, I felt so sorry for him.
Well,
Took
he got his way. He stole a
giant
chair.
choke
He took the chair away. What do you expect to happen?
He took the chair away, yeah, but I mean, it wasn't a part of that match. I mean, he had to do his job.
Well, he could have done his job outside of the ring and just let him destroy the person. The sooner he just destroyed him with a chair, the sooner he would have got out there easier. But he decided to take the limelight away from Congo Kong, and that ended up to be his worst night ever at that particular promotion. But then that
Well,
carried
I
on.
mean,
That carried on into EWA at that event as well, where Congo liked to mess with him after that. He's an easy
that
target.
yeah, he there was another event in which he was it was back in Frankfort, Kentucky, and they crossed paths again, and just poor Peyton. I mean, I don't know, man. I feel sorry for Peyton. But again, you know, it's a line you got to tread carefully as a referee. Now, that being said, the match at Congo Kong that where he had the chair taken away,
Yeah.
that match wasn't relaxed rules. It wasn't. It was a standard one-on-one contest, so Peyton had to do what he had to do.
But
Obviously, he paid for it.
the thing
So,
was, Aaron, is that the match was over, so there was no rules after that. So that's why
well,
Conor Khan wanted to inflict.
after it's over, the wrestlers don't need to be attacked afterwards. It's assault at that point.
Well, obviously, Conor Khan was upset with Danny Marth. That's what he was facing at the time.
Right, right.
He thought that he needed to make sure he does not come back. And that's exactly what happened. We've not seen Danny Marth back
No,
anywhere near Indiana ever since Conor Khan viciously assaulted him. And it would be even worse if Peyton did not get involved.
well, yeah. I mean, you're right. If Peyton get involved, it could have been a lot worse. But Peyton had to do what he had to do. It is what it is.
And now since then, by the way, we've not seen Peyton either ever again. So, that's two people Conor Khan's got rid of now.
Conco has been known to kind of, if he doesn't want anybody around, he can make a point, and that's why you don't see either of those anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you never know, Aaron. After tonight, you might be next on his list. So just be careful what you say as well, because I don't want you to
I hope not. I hope not.
But let's lead back onto you, because you're ringing out to your commentator. You
Yes.
do all these multitasking. Whenever you are calling a Kong of Kong match, for instance, let's just keep on the topic of Kong going for one more moment.
Yeah.
I guess you got to be very careful what you say, because you never know. Kong of Kong might listen back and actually think that you might become a target of his. So does that come into your head when you're watching what he's doing in the ring, or anybody else who is very dangerous in the ring as well? Does that ever come across your mind of that you got to be careful what you may say, because this might come out to bite you in the mouth or in the hip or whatever?
Well, as a commentator, I am required to be non-biased. I'm not going to be biased about what happens in the ring, you know, because the thing is I am out there telling the story of what's going on.
Yeah.
And do you ever see a narrator be biased about anything? No. So I'm narrating what's going on. Now, that being said, that's what my color commentators are for. They're the ones that can lay out their opinion.
Yeah,
I'm just letting you know what's going on.
You sometimes get in an argument with your fellow color commentators, which sometimes is entertainment and sometimes it's just annoying.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen.
Depends who you work with.
Well, listen. I'll give you a great example with Bobby Blade. Bobby Blade, me and him can agree on a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of times that him and I disagree on a lot of stuff, and we will spat with one another on commentary. You can hear it multiple times, but that's the respect we have for one another, because I understand that he tends to kind of lean in with the bad guys a little bit, and me, of course, I have to be right down the middle. So I gotta bring him back on track, you know.
Yeah.
But
you do.
Yep. But as a commentator, the best thing about it is telling the story to the people. And for those wrestlers that are in the ring, whoever is in that ring, they are the spotlight. And I want to make sure that the spotlight shines on them. That's the beautiful thing about independent wrestling, is there are so many guys, so many gals that you're going to come up on, and so many different stories you can tell, that at the end of the night, when they're able to go back and see all the footage and they talk to me, they just are so appreciative of how big we made their match feel. And as a commentator, for me, that's just one of the coolest feelings, to know that we're being appreciated for what we do. And that's what I love about commentary.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You do a very good job, and you are, I guess, one of the best in the business because you're in demand. So you're doing something, Mike, Aaron. I'm sure all the wonderful people you've met at different promotions as well are all saying the same thing as they probably watch this or listen to this, whether they're watching this or listening this on. That comes to my next point. When you were announced to come on this show, I know it was your birthday yesterday, so happy
Right.
belated birthday. You are
Thank
now,
you.
I believe, 40 years old as well.
Yes. Yeah.
There you
Just
go.
turned
See,
40
there
yesterday.
you go. So you're still in your prime. You know, you're still in your prime. So you got another 20 or 30 years left in the business, which is fantastic. I mean, we get to hear your voice for another 30 years at least, maybe even longer, depending on how long you want to go for. But when it was announced yesterday that you were coming on the show today, did you? I know you had a show last night as well, which we'll get into in a moment. But did anybody come up to you yesterday about that, or did you tell anybody yesterday about that?
When I shared it out on the on my social media, and and I was talking to people at the show about it. They were pretty excited to see me go on an international podcast, and that's really cool for me. It's a great first time experience. To be on uh, a podcast not based out of the states. So I really pumped about that, as other people were too.
Okay, so we'll get into those people later on because you may have some suggestions for me to contact. So we'll get into that
Oh yeah.
in a little bit. But talk to me about the show last night. I know it was a fantastic show. Even a surprise happened, which is now making all the dirt sheets, all the wrestling news, with Carlito showing up and
That's
causing
right.
chaos at the end of the show last night. So
Yeah.
what a surprise! Who knew about that? Did you know anything about that beforehand, or were you shocked that everybody else was, including the dirt sheets and the wrestling news people who are now reporting it today? And also, as well, you were absolutely laughing there for a moment, so I want
Yeah.
to know why on earth were you laughing for?
I am laughing because of how chaotic that moment was. So with Appalachian Mountain Wrestling, not only do I ring announce, I don't do commentary there.
Oh, that's a shame.
I'm the ring announcer and I am their producer.
Right.
So I'm cutting the camera shots for this.
Oh, cool.
So we all have a headset on
Yeah.
that we're able to communicate. And I'm sitting there and one of our directors in the back is telling our camera guy on the floor, turn around, there's something coming. And I'm sitting over there like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I'm baffled. I don't
Yeah.
know who's there. I have no idea. And then all of a sudden I hear the Carlito's classic theme, and I'm floored. I'm floored. I have no idea. I had no idea it was coming. He walks through that curtain, and the Lexington Ice Center blew up. That crowd reaction was amazing. Um, it's just a shock to see Carlito fresh off of his contract running out. He was just under contract just the other day to WWE, and now, ta-da! So, it made all the internet sites and people have been talking about it. It's created a great buzz, and we're extremely excited for the future of AMW and um, Appalachian Mountain Wrestling. I'll tell you this: it's one of the premier promotions in the state of Kentucky, and they're eyeing opportunities to even do stuff out of the state. And
That's cool.
they got a great talent roster right now. Their heavyweight champions Marty Clay, and Marty Clay's been featured a little bit down at Reality of Wrestling with Booker T. He was an extra on SmackDown on Friday night that came from Rep Arena in Lexington. He's getting a lot of notice. He's keep an eye out for Marty, because that kid's going to go places for sure.
You hear
Uh,
first on this show.
and of course, yeah, James Storm last night. James Storm and Stan Sierra. That was a great match, and it's we had a bunch of great talent. Michael Zodiac. You want to talk about a wrestler that has been around for a while, but he's still always reinventing himself. That's the coolest thing about Michael Zodiac. You will see different styles of his character dating all the way back to the 90s, the late 90s, early 2000s. And, his career has spanned over such a long time that, every time something different happens with him, fans are just reinvested again. So, Michael Zodiac, Lord Murphy Costigan, that guy, he's based out of his home promotion was based in Tennessee, but he's starting to see a lot of action up at AMW. He's one of our champions. Him and Zodiac had a wonderful match last night. We had a 5-team gauntlet match where we crowned new AMW heavyweight champion or tag team champions. The new tag champs are the country gentlemen of the NWA, AJ Kazana and KC Kazana. And they're going to have, I have a feeling down the road you're going to see them doing battle with the Heat Seekers for the titles. And Heat Seekers were former NWA tag team champions themselves. So, again, deep talent roster where we're at with AMW.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you were part of that history making, I guess, surprise. This happened last night with or without knowing what was going to happen next. And hopefully you shot to the right angle at the right time to see Carlito. And speaking of which as well, you mentioned the classic song. So is that the one which says, I spit in the face who people are not cool?
Yes, that's the one.
Perfect. Yeah, I prefer that theme tune. I didn't really like his new one in Double E because that just felt a bit rubbish compared to the original, and I think that fit him more. I thought than that current one he was using. So I'm glad he's gone back to his other one, the OG version. But I kind of knew something was going to happen because a few weeks ago, before he got released, or whatever happened with that. But I saw something from WWC in Puerto Rico when he came back and he won the title. And I thought that's a bit strange. When he was there and he won the title out of the blue. And I thought, what's going on here? So then when that happened, I think maybe a week or so later, I thought, okay, that makes more sense why he was there to win that belt. So I was shocked, like the whole of the wrestling world was, to see Carlito showing up to an event in Kentucky last night and making an impact. So that's going to set something up, I'm sure, down the line for that certain promotion, I'm guessing.
Right. I don't know. I know the matchmakers at AMW are going to try to figure out, when is that best opportunity for Carlito and Stan Sierra to meet, because obviously you saw the stare down, you saw the punch, you saw him spitting the apple in the face of the president, Tony Presley. So, there's obviously some heat there. So I'm excited to see when that match might take place, and could we see a new champion? I don't know, because we do carry the AMW and New South Kentucky championships. So because that AMW did buy out the New South Kentucky promotion.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And you even got a picture with Carlito after the event as well last night. Tell me about how that happened. Did he give you any hints of anything that may happen in the future, or or even give you any advice or anything like that, maybe?
Yeah, well, for me, we really didn't have too much of an interaction, except I said, "Hey, pleasure to see you." He remembered me from the last time he saw me when I announced for him a couple times before.
That's good. Yeah. You made a good impression on him to at least remember who you were.
Absolutely. He is, to me, he's always been one heck of a wrestler. Somebody who didn't really get his due when he came back to WWE. But
I agree.
I think Carlito can make an impact wherever he goes. Obviously, holding the WWC championship, we saw him show up here. The independent scene is wonderful right now. He could show up anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of took the Matt Cardona approach. Cardona, he's made a name for himself just on the independent scene, and and obviously he's had his runs in TNA and AEW, but the independent scene is where he has flourished, and it's so cool to see. Carlito can make that same run too if he wants, because he's got the star power, and you're never going to see, not never. Let me rephrase that. you're not going to see a whole bunch of people coming out of WWE able to make those kind of moves. I think he could. But who knows? I don't know where we're going to see Carlito next. And Carlito also, he was very, very cool with the fans. They had a special meet and greet after the show with them. So he was able to take some pictures, sign some autographs. It was neat. So definitely cool moment to end last night's event.
Yeah, most definitely, for sure. I can't agree. I can't agree with more with you because I think Carlito showing up has made, I guess, Kentucky the buzziest place to be at the moment because you never know, you might show up at another promotion in Kentucky or nearby now. So who knows where Carlito may show up? And I agree. I think he could go on and he could go on and make a huge impact outside of WWE on the independents. He might get TNA or AEW if they want them, or just do what, as you mentioned, Matt's been doing on the indie scene and blowing it all up in the right way.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
before we carry on, I want to take a moment to mention about your background
Yes.
behind you this evening. I am liking your choice of room you decided to join me from. So I can see lots of interesting pictures on the wall behind you. For instance, I think we got the Lion King in the top, the left corner of you for you, top right for me. You've got something else in the bottom left as well. Very cool. What do they mean to you the most?
Well, those right there, those are actually my wife's Broadway pictures, but we do enjoy Broadway together. We do enjoy plays. Phantom of the Opera is our absolute favorite. One of the best things, one of the best versions of the Phantom of the Opera that we've seen was the one that they did from Royal Albert Hall a few years ago when they celebrated the anniversary of Phantom. So that was awesome. Behind me, you can see. I'm going to duck out of the way here. You see quite a few pictures of people that I've met, and
Yeah.
one is actually a big purchase. So the big one right over here,
Uh-huh.
that is my Keiji Muto picture. That is autographed and authenticated. So that was really cool.
That's cool.
Um, I got Crime Time up at the top.
Yeah.
Danhausen, Brody King, Ethan Page, Swoggle, Enzo, Evil Uno.
Evil.
Um,
Yeah.
I want to go on record and say that Brody King was absolutely amazing. Ethan Page was awesome. Evil Uno was so cool. Swoggle was as well. I mean, honestly, and so was Danhausen, and I actually got to do an event with a signing with Enzo, and he was really cool. The Crime Time one was actually gifted to me, so it means a lot more to see Shad's autograph up there, though.
Absolutely,
For
yeah. Can't believe
so
it's about 5 years now since that
yeah,
tragic
yeah,
incident has happened. Never seen that on the news. Speaking of Evil Uno, of course, he's doing phenomenal things in Canada with his own
yes,
promotion, which is called Mystery Wrestling.
yes,
And I know, for instance, I think Connor Kong would be a great asset for him because, as you mentioned before, about referees being destroyed. I feel like on any of those mystery wrestling shows, they do that a lot on that show.
yeah, they
So
do.
he would fit in perfect. Maybe you won't because, of course, you don't like that, but I mean, he will fit perfectly up there.
Yeah, I think he'd be a great asset to it. But Mystery Wrestling, it's kind of picked up that viral popularity. There are moments that you see just resurface on the internet over and over and over. I'll never forget about the double Eddie Guerrero spot where one guy fakes getting hit with the chair, he takes the bump, and then the other guy just throws himself through a door. And and it's just those moments, because mystery wrestling is, it's almost kind of developed a life of like a Chikara wrestling. So I
Interesting.
really enjoy seeing that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to us about I guess the British style of wrestling. I don't know how often you come across it in America. There's a few wrestlers in your area who are from or inspired by the British style of wrestling. Has
Well,
any of that impressed you at all?
I've always had a little bit of I've always had a little bit of intrigue for like the world of sport. I've always
Oh yeah.
enjoyed the classic world of sport. I've gotten a chance to do some shows with Zaya Brookside, which is of course Robbie Brookside's daughter. Um, and then um, I always feel like there's a couple guys that can really study the British style, and they use it pretty well here in where they're at. Michael Zodiac, as I mentioned before, he's one of those guys. Um, but for me, British wrestling, I always loved watching like the NXT UK, because that gave me a good look at what modern was. And then, of course, when I saw that, I started watching more Progress. I started watching ICW out of Scotland. The thing I love about British wrestling is the crowds. The crowds are absolutely amazing with British wrestling. They're diehard, and I have just so many cool things to say about it. I love watching it, and the great things about promotions like Progress. They're pulling people in from all over the world, and not only do you see British wrestling at its strongest, but you also see that international influence on the British wrestling. So, I for me, being a fan of wrestling in general, I love the British scene. Again, getting to work with Zaya Brookside a couple of times, she's been absolutely awesome. Knowing that her dad is Robbie Brookside, he's a legend. I've had the opportunity to meet William Regal a couple of times. Just on off chances.
Yeah.
It wasn't like anything planned or anything like that. He was just there.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, I have a question for you. Let's put it this way.
Okay.
I'm going to turn the tables for a second.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, go on.
For those who haven't seen a lot of British wrestling,
Okay.
what would you recommend?
Right. Good question. I like that. So, what I recommend to watch, yeah,
Yes.
I would say possibly Progress Wrestling
Uh-huh.
because, for instance, I'll give you an example because there's these two comedians who are both British.
Yeah.
Both appeared at this Progress Wrestling event earlier this year, and are now going to have a wrestling match later this year in I think it's the Royal Albert Hall, I think, is where
Oh,
the
wow.
fight's going to happen. I could be wrong, but that's somewhere in that location. And I think that is in October, I want to say.
Okay.
That's one promotion. Another one as well, I would mention is North Wrestling from
Yes.
Newcastle.
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
And if we want to talk about Manchester based, where I am based, obviously, I'll probably say Future Shock as well,
Okay.
or there is another one as well. I'm trying to think of the name of it now. Put me on the spot. I think it's called Infinity Promotions. I want to say.
Yeah.
They do some shows in Manchester as well. I think they do maybe a bit of Manchester and a bit wider the field. But yeah, there's some promotions people should look out for and check out because there's some really good talent there, and they are blowing it up on the UK scene for sure.
Is Attack Pro Wrestling around still?
Attack Pro Wrestling, yeah, that did go on a hiatus for a while.
Okay.
But now that is back I think it's in the Wales area, but I think they also go, I think in the London area as well. I could be wrong, but I thought they used to do. But they have come back now because I know they've been uploading new videos on YouTube and such. So yeah, I thought them where they are now officially back, which is good because I know it was a very crazy show as well. It was a bit similar to like mystery wrestling, a bit like that.
Yes.
But it was good because we didn't have anything like over here.
Right.
And then it just went on hiatus, I think, because of COVID, and then it now has come back, which is great to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And to me, the more promotions there are, the more opportunity wrestlers get to work. And having options out there, I believe, is one of the greatest things about wrestling. Um, so that it's like with WWE, AEW, TNA. I have friends and acquaintances that have worked and wrestled for all these promotions, and just imagine if one of them wasn't around. That's one less place, and that is anywhere from 20 to 50 roster members just losing a spot.
Yeah.
And you don't want that to happen. You don't.
Mm. Interesting take. I like it. Now, before we move on, let's talk about your social media. Where can my viewers/listeners can find you on social media to reach out to you about any of the discussions we have tonight, or talk to you about any of the events they might see you at in the future as well, which we'll get into shortly as well?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook as ring announcer Aaron Rose, Instagram at AaronRKY1, and then on TikTok at AaronRKY. My X handle is a little different because I actually do a little bit of work with another production company called Prep Spin. We do high school sports, and we are the official production company of the Kentucky High School Athletic Association. So last weekend, I was actually able to produce the state baseball championships that emanated from the University of Kentucky. So you
Impressive.
can find me under Prep Spin Aaron on X. So
A cool handle. I have to say that cool handle. Talk to
and
me about, was it always your goal to be an MC, ring announcer, or commentator, or was your goal completely different when you broke in, or was that always your aim to be? Because maybe you were inspired by, I don't know, Howard Finkel, or Tony Chim, or Justin Warrers, who it might have been. What made you into this fantastic person we see today?
well, it started in high school. I always had an affinity for sports. I used to play them. Injured myself back when I was younger, so I didn't get to play much after. But I started working for a local minor league baseball team called the Lexington Legends,
That's cool.
and then that first year I was working for them, I got selected to work for a new hockey team that showed up that set up at Rupp Arena called the Lexington Men of War. During the Lexington Men of War season, I had an opportunity to be the in crowd announcer because the person that was the in crowd announcer showed up, well, inebriated one day. I'm just going to put it like that. And she got fired on the spot. So
Oh,
our GM came to us. I was a part of a group called the Ice Patrol, where we were the goofballs that shot T-shirts into the crowd, got people hyped up during the game, just having a good time. Well, he asked one of us to do it, and I said, "I'll do it. Let's give it a go." Well, my first night there's about 4,000 people, and I couldn't hear myself at first.
oh.
So I gave the old tap on the microphone. Hey, is this thing on? Got to get a good little laugh out of that. I said, well, I guess it is. And then I just started, going into all the promotions that we were doing, and that cool moment where you get to hear yourself inside a world famous arena. That kind of set things off for me. Um, my second semester of my senior year of high school, I actually ended up signing up as a teacher aide because when you're a senior, your requirement classes are pretty much done, with the exception of a couple. So um, I signed up for a teacher aide. Well, the teacher that I was aiding was the high school baseball coach, and he asked me to be their PA announcer for the high school games. And again, I think that was just kind of the moment where I started to get more and more into it. And then in the year 2004,
Yeah.
I helped out with a project called coolcatshockey.com. It's for the University of Kentucky hockey team. And it was one of the first internet um, commentary providers for the league that we were in. So um, I got a chance to become a University of Kentucky hockey announcer, and started gaining a little bit of notoriety. It turned into a radio career, and then I made some friends with a local wrestler, and he knew about all my announcing experience, and he said, "Hey, you know, and this local wrestler, actually my commentary partner now, Bobby Blade, he was wrestling at that time. He said, "Hey, this promotion I'm working for, looking for a ring announcer. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I would. I've watched wrestling all my life." And then that's when I really started to dig in a little bit, like, what can my style be like? Obviously, I'm not going to imitate anyone in particular because I got to be original as an announcer, but I have influences. One of my all-time influences was actually Gary Michael Capetta. He was the ring announcer for WCW, of course, and then his predecessor, Dave Penzer.
Yes.
I love Dave Penzer's style, and of course, you can't think wrestling and not think of the Thing too.
Yeah.
So I kind of like to use a little bit of all of those styles. I kind of mix it in a little bit, but also too, there's a local influence that I really got to watch when I really got into indie wrestling, and his name was Slick Rick Toms, and he still ring announces to this day. I'm not going to put his age out there because I don't know for sure, but he has been in it for a while, and to me, he was always one of the best unsigned ring announcers. So he's a great influence to me. Love Rick Toms, great dude. Absolute one of the best at what he does, and it's one of the guys I will refuse to say that I'm better than.
Well, you mentioned Dave Penzer, obviously. And
yes.
Of course, he's a legendary commentator, of course. Again, also in WCW on Nitro for the beginning of the Monday Night Wars. And then,
Right.
Of course, later years in Total Non-Stop Action, TNA, having several stints there. And I always find that his voice was always fantastic.
Yes.
And it's always a shame when he always got replaced or released and then got replaced. I always find that the people who he got replaced by after him did a good job, but I always felt that he was always on another level. I always felt after, especially in TNA, for instance, I thought there's been nobody better than him, but I think they've now found somebody who is doing a good job as well, and he's just fantastic. Just like Michael Buffer as well, when he did his little wrestling stint as well in WCW and in WWE, and of course everybody has their own style. Like Bruce Buffer has its time, but the UFC, when he does this iconic intro, Michael Buffer with the "Let's Get Ready to Rumble." Have you got your own style?
I don't have
a catchphrase.
I don't really have a catchphrase. But one thing I really like to do is during introductions, especially for title matches, and it depends on the promotion. Like with AMW, I really wasn't able to do in-ring intros because I'm producing too. So I kind of have to catch people on the fly there.
Right. Are you producing yourself as well?
What's that?
Are you always producing yourself as well?
Just at AMW, yeah.
No, I mean, like, are you producing your own ring announcing at AMW as well, or is that somebody else doing that?
No, it's me. It's me. So, but the thing is I always have to make sure that I'm always back at the cameras. I'm not able to be in the ring.
Mm.
So, I don't do those in-ring intros, but I will say this 100%. Um I absolutely love when and I don't know if he still does or not, but Buffer would do like the current reigning and defending, you know, UFC light heavyweight champion of the world, I would do something like that. Because I like the current reigning and defending. So, I admittedly I will use that a little bit. But it depends on the crowd, I feel like, because if I have a crowd in there that's just kind of just kind of going with every word, I will slow down my introduction a little bit, and I'll let the crowd just kind of feed it in, take it all in,
Yeah.
and and then I'll finish it strong,
But
and
on
people
that
love that.
point, on that point, when you are slowing it down, do you get heat with the talent in the ring by saying, "Can you just hurry this up because we want to get on with the action," or anything like
No,
that?
not at all. I now when I say slow it down, I'm not saying that I just stop. It's like, for example, it'll be like, let me take the introductions from last show. Um, from my last EWA show, I was introducing Jordan Cage versus Omega, and you know when I started introducing the challenger Jordan Cage, he's the bad guy. I'm like, introducing first, being accompanied by Lone Wolf Bobby Blade. I start hearing boos. I'm like, okay, they're in it. From Hollywood, California, weighing in tonight at 187 and a half pounds. And then I stop again just for a second and I hear him. And I go, picture perfect, Jordan Cage, boo. And then his opponent was Omega, and he was being accompanied by Cash Atkins, who's a young up and coming kid. He was from Nicholasville, Kentucky, where we were at. So, I'll be like,
Hometown.
yeah, hometown boy. So I played into that. Introducing his opponent, being accompanied to the ring by Nicholasville's own Cash Atkins. So they're eating it up. You know, from Louisville, Kentucky, weighing in at 210 pounds. He is the current reigning and defending EWA champion. And I hear everybody erupting, and then I go into his moniker, the prize fight pitbull. Break for a second. Omega. And everybody goes nuts. So, you know, I'm listening to the crowd. Now, if we have time constraints, obviously I'm not going to do that. I want to make sure that I get the information out there, I get it done professionally, and I get it done quick. But when you have moments like that, because that match had been building and building and building, the crowd's ready, and they just kind of went after it. So, um, you know, it's and then in other moments, if there's going to be an attack or something at the beginning of a match, I gotta be ready for those, be ready to get the heck out of the ring, or I'm gonna get pummeled myself. So
Well,
um
people might want to see that though. You never know.
nah, I hope not. I hope not. My body can't take that.
well, I don't know how much time you have left, but I do have about three more questions for you.
Okay, fire away.
If we can go through them as well.
Yeah.
So the first one of three is: have you got any particular goals you're wanting to accomplish before the end of this year?
Before the end of this year, before the end of this year, for me, I want to travel a little bit more. I've done shows in Ohio, Indiana. Um, haven't done Illinois yet. I've done shows in Kentucky, obviously, West Virginia, Tennessee.
That's
So I would like to finish up the states around me. I'd like to do one in Illinois. I like to do one in Missouri. I like to do one in Virginia.
yeah,
Um, that would be all my surrounding states. Um, I'd like to go up and work in places like Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania can be a good wrestling hotbed. I'd like to go up there. I like to debut down in Georgia. Um, maybe get one in Florida. Um, that's my short term goal, but long term goal, I'd like to, you know, do I want to get the dream of becoming an announcer for one of the big three? Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't matter who I land with. I'd love to have that opportunity, and I'm going to be pursuing those opportunities. Um, the motivation's there. That I'm getting a lot of good feedback, a lot of good opportunities, and getting a lot of compliments. So, and that's even if I'm in a producing role too. If I get into a producing role, great. I would love to be a ring announcer, commentator, producer. Throw it at me. I have experience in all of it.
yeah,
And especially on the producing side, the thing that got me ready for producing was prep spin. We put on an ESPN style broadcast where I do scoreboard, graphics, cameras, and replays all by myself. But also the guy that runs that knows how to streamline his systems and make it look good. Easy on us.
Yeah.
So, but and that helps. Having a streamlined system is amazing. But so I would like to do that for sure.
Yeah, good goals. And you mentioned the top three companies. I'm assuming that would be either TNA, AEW, or WWE.
Yeah, and let's throw Game Changer in there too. I feel like Game Changer is one of the top tier indies, and they're getting just as much exposure as anybody else is right now. So
well, even as well, you mentioned just down the road from you, I'm sure OVW as well.
Yeah, OVW's out there. Yeah. They got a good talent roster when it comes to their commentators and ring announcers, and some of those people are my friends, and I'm like, I'm not going to step on any toes over there right now. But if the opportunity comes up, who knows?
Well, I think you were fitting perfectly in OVW, or even any of the other promotions you mentioned as well. But I look forward to seeing the day when you announce that you are signed, or as they say, or all elite perhaps as well. So whenever those happen, I look forward to seeing that, and I will wish you congratulations and well deserved. I might even play this back to you.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
But when it happens, though, I do want you to come back on the show exclusively to reveal how your first week has gone.
All right, I'll do that. The thing is about that, being a commentator and ring announcer in this industry is very hard because it's not as many opportunities. So the timing has to be perfect, the opportunity has to be perfect, and everything has to fall into place. But that being said, you got to put the work in, and that's my goal.
Well, you mentioned that, but I feel like there's not as many, I guess, ring announcers or commentators around. I feel like they come in through. I feel like there's more wrestlers, there's more referees, there's more managers. So I feel like there's loads of opportunities to become a ring announcer or a commentator. I could be completely wrong, but just from as an outsider looking in, it feels like there's not many people pursuing those types of careers at the moment. So I feel like there's a lot more in the door moments, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there can be, but also these companies also have an idea of who they want, and they're looking for the people who've been experienced on TV and stuff like that. That being said, let's let's have a good time if we can make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Second to last question for you. Before you came on the show tonight, I'm guessing, I hope you have, but you might not have done. Did you actually do any research about this show, about the format, about how I operate, or do you come here unknown, blindfolded, and thought, let's just see what happens?
I'd watch a couple episodes because I always do that whenever I go onto a podcast. I want to make sure that I know what to experience, what to expect. So, and to me, that's doing a service to the people who host the podcast. I always want to make sure that I have some kind of background. Now, that being said, I admittedly, um, you know, I watched it back in January, when we were originally booked. But I went back and watched highlights and stuff again. So,
Yeah,
just to
yeah,
kind of remember the format.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. That's good. That's good because you join some high-profile people now on this channel. You've had on, as you know, Jake Hager has been on there about
oh
two
yeah.
weeks ago. We've had, of course, back in the past, White Seth Fred on
Hmm.
here. Web Theory have been on here. White Seth Fred. We've had Eric Bischoff as well.
Right.
Al Snow, one of the people at OVW. So you join a good host of people on this channel, including some well-known boxers as well, and well-known bare knuckle fighters and MMA fighters, and all sorts of different characters on this channel. We bring it all to you in as I say, in an unscripted, unedited, and must-see content is right here on this channel.
Absolutely. And you know, that's the thing is there's a lot of people out there who don't give the guests a lot of time to really to talk about why they're there and stuff. And I think you do a wonderful job of that.
Oh, thank you.
You open up the discussion, and that's the great thing is having a discussion. And all the podcasts I've done that have that ability, that's to me that's the best because you're able just to be yourself, and that's what this show did that for me. So definitely appreciate that.
You're welcome. I'm glad I lived up to your expectations from what you've seen of how this show operates because, as you mentioned, it's a more of a discussion slash conversation rather than a robotic question and answer format with the
Right.
same typical questions with the same typical answers. It gets quite boring after a while, so I try my best to freshen up the questions and the answers, hopefully. So
Absolutely.
hopefully we both
Absolutely.
win on that front as well. And
Yeah.
I got to mention as well, we talked about it near the beginning of this chat about some of the people you mentioned about the show to yesterday and maybe on social media as well. Let's see how many people you are now name drop. Let's just see. You might decide not name up anybody, but we'll see what happens. So, who were some of the people you spoke to or got a message from after you announced that you're on the show on my show today? Got in contact with you about this show? Did anyone contact you particularly about this show, about how it all works, or how they maybe watch this show, or think what on earth is this show about? Why is this Mancunian from Manchester, UK, reaching out to somebody in Kentucky, for instance?
Well, mainly talked to the people about it at the show because I didn't have time for social media yesterday. I barely had time to go through and look at my birthday wishes and thank everyone. But I was talking to guys, like Michael Zodiac. I feel like he could be a great guest on this show. I talked to the Kazanas a little bit, the Country Gentlemen, the Heat Seekers, as I mentioned before. Um, Marcus Johnson, he's our goal for the gold case holder. So I had a few guys, and of course Bobby Blade. Bobby Blade. That dude's got stories, and I love it. He's a great commentator. I feel like he could be a great guest at some point for you. Um, but it's really cool because I think the thing was that they were like, you're doing it too. I said, yeah, he's from England, and he was like, oh, okay, okay. I said, yep. So about 7 o'clock his time.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. Yeah,
um,
5 hours out of you. Yep, yep, yep. So
yep.
usually
So,
you people think, well, usually I guess you do shows at the evening time. I guess for you, is that
right,
right?
right. It
Right,
would be 7 hour time normally or
right.
8 hour time.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is my first international podcast, so I'm really pumped about that. So first international show. So
Yeah,
uh,
well,
you know, and I appreciate you having me on for sure.
No, you're welcome, because I've been trying to reach you for a while after that little
Right.
setback in January, and of course, it took a while, but as people like to point out, I persisted, and I got my answer eventually. It took me long enough, and you came back on.
And it wasn't on purpose either. It's just that when you have a regular full-time job
Yes,
on top of what I do with the wrestling stuff, it's always go go go.
yeah.
You know.
Well,
So
how many friends would you say you have as well? Just putting that out as well. How many friends do you have altogether? Would you say?
how many friends?
Yeah,
Oh gosh.
thousands.
Close friends, very, very close friends, it would be around 50 or so.
Yeah.
Close friends.
So,
But
so he is a busy guy in demand. So he probably didn't see my message because you get inbox with loads of messages, I guess, from your close friends and from people within the business and
right.
opportunities to branch out and such. So that's completely understandable as well. So that's probably why it took you a while to come back to me. It's completely fine, by the
And when
way.
it comes to friends though, I mean, everybody that I add onto like my Facebook
Yeah,
page, it's it's somebody that I've had some kind of close connection with, or not even close connection, but we've had a face-to-face interaction at some point. You know, with the exception of a few people that like I don't really know that well, but we're in the business together. And when you're in the wrestling business together, you do want to expand your circle as much as you possibly can, because you never know who can be a door for you to go into a different location,
yeah,
or who you can help out.
yeah.
So, and that's the best thing about being in the wrestling community.
And there's something else I have to mention as well. Someone told me a while ago, it's always good to be nice to the person because you never know, you may meet them again as you come back down.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been I've always been under the um under the thought that you're going to attract more friends with honey than vinegar. You want to make sure that you respect the people that interact with you, and I want to make sure they respect me. And the only way you can get respect is to give them respect.
Hmm.
And it's something, and that was something that was instilled to me by my father. My father was always the same way, and he treated people with respect, and he was one of the most respected guys in his field. Where he was a computer programmer, and he was relied upon a lot in what he did. And he passed away back in 2021, but boy, I tell you what, those lessons stick with me today.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
good. And again, I'm sorry for your loss as well. And I'm glad that he's still inspiring you to this day, and you're keeping his memory alive and keeping his lessons as well alive to pass on to other
absolutely.
people as well. So it's great to see. But it's been a pleasure having you on the show tonight, Aaron. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to reaching out to those suggestions you gave me as well. And when you name dropped the show to the people in public, did anybody know who I was?
Um, Not as of yet, but I have a feeling they'll be doing some research.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough because I do understand that there's a few people in your area who know of me in a good way. I think so.
Right.
So which is good. But again, who knows? Could be all negative stuff. But again, who knows? But no, it's been an absolute pleasure. And of course, you can find Aaron on social media. You mentioned to you before. You can rewind to about halfway past the hour to find out where Aaron is and make sure you support him. Got to mention as well, you can find new episodes of the show, not just here on YouTube, but also on your favorite audio platform, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. All you have to do is search The Edward Fowler Show on those platforms or wherever else you get your podcasts from. And you can find out all these latest episodes on the go. You don't have to watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it in the bathroom, in the bedroom, in the car, wherever you want to go. You can listen to the show, which is fantastic. And this episode will eventually be uploaded to the those platforms at some point in the near future as well. And I will make sure to tag you on that on social media when it is added to those platforms.
Thank you.
Make sure to smash the like button, share the video around, tell Aaron about how he's a great ring announcer / commentator. We had a great debate at the beginning of the episode, which maybe you may agree or may not disagree. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below by leaving a comment and any future questions you may have for Aaron. Also, as well, if you're new around here and you like the content and want to see more of my great interviews and fantastic guests we have on, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. We've got over 315 subscribers. The ticketer is back working for the first time in several weeks. Hooray! But until the next episode, whenever that may be, enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening.